Good morning, members. Is it getting through? Good morning, members. We have a quorum. The meeting is now called to order. First of all, agenda item number 1. Members are to consider the late application of 12 members. The 12 letters have been sent to were sent to members on the 8th and the 10th of October under paper PWSC 5 and PWSC 6 respectively. According to 4B of our rules, the chairman may agree to accept late membership on grounds of indisposition or absence from Hong Kong. A request for late membership on grounds other than indisposition or absence from Hong Kong shall be put to the subcommittee. The subcommittee shall accept such applications only when sufficient grounds have been provided. End of quote. I just want to ask members on how to deal with these applications. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Sorry, speaker is not coming through. Would you ask members to come along to explain on the grounds other than indisposition or absence? We should give a chance to them so that they can be heard. With regard to Mr. Sin Chung Kai's view, I have discussed with the secretary. The PWSC has a very huge backlog. To put it simply, if your proposal has got the support of the majority of members, this can be regarded as housekeeping matters, to put it simply, and I don't want to allow that to hold up the backlog. So I hope members can also express their views. If Mr. Sin's view is accepted, will you support the view that we should have a separate meeting, a special separate meeting to deal with that, so that they will not stand in the way of the items waiting? Ms. Ip Kwok Him. With regard to late applications, the reasons have been provided, and I don't believe they need to have further explain the grounds. It is just very simple. It's up to you, Mr. Chairman. If you think it should be dealt with right away, then let us deal with it right away. We don't need a special meeting. I do not think that is a complicated issue. And we know what's happened. So I just hope that we deal with it right away. And we don't need a special meeting or anything that have any special meaning, said the speaker. I just hope that the chairman will deal with it fairly and squarely. You can ask them to come, but whether they come along or not, whether the grounds you accept it or not, is just yes or no. It's so simple. Mr. Albert Chan and then Mr. Lee Chairman. Well, I'm fair-minded, Mr. Chairman. As said by Mr. Ip Kwok Him, the grounds provided by individual members have been put forward. They seem to be very simple, but we have to be fair. Earlier on, it is said that some members put the blame on their assistants. I think that is unfair to the assistants. Sometimes members have failed their duties and then put the blame on their assistants and put the blame on the secretariat. Let us call the spade be spade. Call a spade, and let us be frank. Ask them to explain. asked them to come along to explain. I can recall that when Mr. Leung Kok-hong was jailed, and he asked me to represent him to attend the PWSC meeting and ask questions on his behalf, but the loyalists oppose it. They unanimously oppose that. Now, when they want to join us in a big team, we have to find out the reasons. Since I've experienced this tragedy or trauma, I really want to know the actual situation. Last time I attended the ESC meeting, I gave the letter, I gave an explanation. I sincerely explained that unlike some members who were just directed and then just put in a letter and just went through the motions, that is unfair to the committee. So if who really want to join this sincerely, then they should come and explain. They shouldn't just be allowed to sign their name and then file in a paper. That's really disrespecting oneself. I support Mr. Sin Chung Kai's proposal. We call a special meeting, or we ask each individual member who to come along and explain. And I want to ask why they oppose me joining the ESC, and yet they now want to apply for late membership. What do you think about a special meeting? Well, it's okay whether it's a special meeting or not, whether it is in the ordinary meeting or it's okay. I have decided not to spend too much time on discussing this item, and the views are rather clear, so please try to shorten your speech. Lee Chuk-yan and then Sit Ho. Have you marked down the names of members who have put up their hands? Chairman, I support a special meeting. They have the duty to explain. In particular, they put the blame on the assistants. Let us be fair to the assistants. And we should seek the truth. We should find out the facts. They say it is ambush. If it's ambush, then they shouldn't blame their assistants. And then I think they should tell us the true reason. And then somebody also said that is unfair. We want to hear about it. Ms. Chang is not on the list. Ms. Sit Ho and then Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. Chairman, I think it's a right of the member, and a chance should be given to the member to come before the committee to explain why he or she wants to join this committee. This time, the establishment says that whether you agree or not, just make up your mind. But I don't think that's the right way. You can't just reject it out of hand and then don't consider the grounds, don't consider the explanation. If they have missed the boat, they are given the right. They should be given the right to explain. If the member thinks that he doesn't want to explain, then so be it. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok and then Mr. Chung Shi-kan. Thank you, Chairman. Since they have already given their grounds in writing, I don't think it is necessary to spend too much time to listen to oral explanation. The PWSC did deal with late applications. And then we dealt with the late applications according to our procedure. We do have a heavy backlog, as said by the chairman, and we don't want to stand in the way of the subsequent discussions of the upcoming items. As for having a special meeting, if we can have a slot for a special meeting, then let us deal with the backlog. And that's realistic and pragmatic in dealing with the work of the PWSC. As for members who have applied to join, and if members have different views with regard to the application, the answer is to put it to the vote. Mr. Chong Shu Kan. Thank you, Chairman. We are here because we are elected to be members. That's a representative government. It is the basic right of a member to join a particular committee. You deprive a member of joining a committee. You deprive the voters of being represented. The restriction is unfair. There was no such restriction in the Urban Council. If you want to join, you can join. It will not disrupt the meeting. We have many things to deal with. We represent our constituencies. And if there is a matter of your concern, it is right to you to join that particular committee. It is unfair and just to set so many hurdles. I don't agree with you, and yet I would rather die to protect your right to speak. According to Mr. Chong, it says it comes from Voltaire. Chairman, if you are a Democrat, then you should protect the right of the members to speak. Otherwise, you are not a true Democrat. Whatever reasons they have given, the reasons have been put in the paper. And if you set up hurdles, you are just making use of the system to prevent voters from being represented by the elected representative. Mr. Chong, I'm not just giving support to democracy by lip service. I take action to protect democracy. The chairman may, under 4B, the chairman can only exercise his discretion as follows. Indisposition and absent from Hong Kong. I've heard that clearly. Chairman, I've already said that the system is flawed. As a representative, when members of the public require us to speak on their behalf by joining a particular committee, there shouldn't be any bar against a member from doing so. I just want to remind members that I have not seen any grounds put forward by the 12 individual members which are related to indisposition or absence from Hong Kong. Therefore, they can only join the committee subject if the subcommittee accepts the applications on sufficient grounds. I've already said that I don't want to spend too much time on discussing the matter. Those in the line are Tam Yu Chung, James To, Chi Wai, Kenneth Kwok, and Kenneth Leung. Kwok Ki, and Kenneth Chung. Well, I think the reasons have already been put forward quite clearly. But it's still your right. If you want to speak, I cannot stop you. But I just want to know, does anybody want to speak apart from the list? Mr. Chen Chi-Chien. Okay, draw a line there. 6 members. Mr. Tam Yu Chong and then Mr. James To.
Mr. Tam? Well, for late application, there are rules set out in the system already. And if reasons have been given and such reasons are accepted by the subcommittee, then that will be okay. There have been precedences. I remember Mr. Jameson did that, and with Emily Lau made a speech, she welcomed Mr. Tan. So I don't think we should treat this late applications so specially. I don't think the subcommittee should prevents these members from doing so, and you shouldn't query the reasons for doing it. Chairman, you said that we should not hold up the discussion of other items. I agree with you. We should focus on the projects, and I don't think we should hold a special meeting for the late application. It seems that we are querying their incentive. I don't think that's necessary. Let's not complicate the issue and don't force the majority views, so-called, on the minority. So we should stick to our past practice. If you do not want those people to join, you can object to the application, but do not waste the time of our meeting. Next, Mr. James Toh. Chairman. Well, for the PWSC procedures, it says that other than being absent from Hong Kong and other than being sick, the late applicants should have enough reasons. So when these members talk to people outside, they say that they have been ambushed. Is that a sufficient reason? Now, of course, we should not guesstimate or guess their incentive. However, if they just say that, a mistake has been made by an assistant, is that a sufficient ground? Or did the party caucus held a meeting and they agreed that ABCD should join the PWSC and the assistants made a mistake? Or the caucus has asked the members to decide by themselves whether they would join or not? Or the principal assistant of the caucus should do the coordination? Is that the case? If we do not see this in the letter, then I don't think enough reasons have been given. Or that letter may be misleading, or even wrong reasons have been made up. So I think we should really look into the grounds on which they make the late application. If we are going to accept wrong reasons as reasons, then we are not complying by the procedures as well. So I really think we should look carefully at that application. For a particular member, did he give enough instruction to his assistant, and who is this assistant, and what has the assistant not done, etc.? So all these we have to look into. So if you think, well, we have to know whether the grounds are sufficient or not. Next, Mr. Wu Chi-wei and Mr. Kwok Kake. Chairman. Well, we should protect members' right to speak. I remember last time Mr. Albert Chan also spoke thoroughly on why he wanted to make a late application. And here today, of course, we should listen to the members who would like to make a late application. So that's why I think we should really allocate time to do that. Dr. Kwok Kake? Well, for any decision and arrangements, of course, they should adhere to the procedures. The chairman made it very clearly. The chairman does not have the right to allow any members to join after the deadline. So that's why we have to look at all the applications very carefully. We, of course, respect the will of these 12 members, but I have looked at their letters and I don't feel easy because they all pass the buck to their assistants. I have talked to the assistants. James told said somebody may be lying and they may be shirking their responsibilities. I think members have to respect their own selves. Now, this is a very serious matter. You can't just make up a reason. And I think we should also do justice to the members' assistants. Now, they are getting their wages for doing work as an assistant, but not to bear responsibility for the members while they haven't made any mistake. I was also at the ESC meeting and Mr. Albert Chen spoke on behalf of Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. This was a really respectful act, but the application was turned down and we didn't have a thorough discussion. So I think this time around we should make more appropriate arrangements. We should hold a special meeting to discuss this. Now, we also treasure the discussion time at PWSC meetings. That's why I agree that a special meeting be held so that now the discussion of other items would not be held up. So for those members who would like to make late application, they must explain to us clearly about what their assistants have done. We have to look clearly and carefully at their reasons. We cannot give people an impression that electrical members are so irresponsible that they pass their bucks to their assistants. Mr. Leung Kai-Chang, I think we have to work in accordance with the PWSC procedure. Some members said just now that, well, any members, if they want to join, then they should be allowed to join. Otherwise, you are restricting their right to speak in council. So does it mean that for all the subcommittees and meetings, any member can just walk in, sit down, and vote? They don't even have to write a letter? Is that the arrangements the other members want to have? Now, there is a deadline for application. This is not unique to Hong Kong. That's just Westminster approach. For a new member in his first year of term in the British Parliament, he cannot join any committee because the decision of joining a certain committee is made by his party whip. So the member himself cannot make this decision. Does it mean that his right to speak is restricted? I don't think so. Mr. Charles Mock has also visited other parliaments in Europe. We have seen what their practices are. So, Chairman, I agree with you on your suggestion. Mr. Chen Chi-chun, even though we eventually reject this 12 members application, their rights to speak have not been deprived of. I remember last year I wasn't sitting on this subcommittee, and last time the chairman was Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. When I came to attend the meetings, he also allowed me to speak. So if members are very concerned about public works, they can always come to our meetings and speak. And Chairman, you can give them time to speak. The only difference is whether they can vote or not. So it is not a deprivation of the right to speak. And Mr. Zhong Shikan says that this may impose an obstruction, and this is unfair. Mr. Albert Chan wanted to join the ESC. So what vote did the DAB cast, was it not unfair? Well, if we want to be consistent, then we should object to the applications of these members. That's what Mr. Tam Yu-chung says. That is the past practice, so we should stick to the past practice. So you have all spoken. Now, according to my observation, it seems that there are different views concerning how we should handle it. And according to Rule 4B, that is whether we should accept the application, well, it is a decision by members of the subcommittee. So I hope that you can raise your hands so that we can decide on this. Now, first of all, do we want to listen to the reasons of just 12 members before we make this decision? And if question number 1 is passed, that is, most people think that we should listen to the late members' views, then should I hold a special meeting so that we will not hold up the items that we need to discuss? Mr. Ibrahim, when will we hold a special meeting? Clerk, have you checked the possible time slots? The clerk has found several time slots for us. 27th of October, 8:30 to 10:30, or 5:15 to 7 p.m. Or 11th of November, a Tuesday, 10:45 to 12:45. We haven't sought members' views on this time slots yet. I also need your assistance. So first of all, do we want to listen to the grounds of these 12 members who are requesting for late membership? Do we want to listen to their grounds first before we make a decision? Please raise your hand if you think that should be done. Can the clerk count for us, please? 22. Thank you. For those who are against, please raise their hands. (22 to 11). So for the first question, I've got your yes. That is, we need to listen to their grounds. So I suggest that we hold another special meeting for this. Can you also raise your hand on this? Do you support my suggestion? Please raise your hands. (22). For those who object, please raise your hands. Let us not have an academic discussion here, because point 1 has already been passed. And point 2, now we agree that a special meeting be held. So we have several possible days. Let's not vote on those days here. Can I ask the clerk to send a circular to members so that we can decide on the date? Mr. James To? Well, we will be inviting the 12 members to come attend that special meeting. So I think there are 2 factors to be considered. Now, first of all, the original members of the PWSC should be able to attend the meeting, and also the 12 prospective members should also have the time to attend the meeting. Yes, we should also ask the 12 members whether they will be available. Mr. Ibrahim, I don't think what Mr. James To said is appropriate. Well, because this is the PWSC meeting, you can invite them, but you can't say that they definitely have to attend. I don't think there is such a need. Mr. Ronnie Tong? I have the same view. If that member doesn't want to attend the meeting, or he doesn't want to express his views, so do you wait till he's available. He will never be available if he doesn't want to come. So maybe you should ask them whether they want to attend or not.
Yes, we just ask whether they are willing to come or not. We don't need to accommodate them. Chairman, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Chairman, you have entirely the right to decide on a date. I fully agree with Mr. Kwok Him. If nobody comes, then you don't need a special meeting. Mr. James Toh. No, that's not correct, Mr. Chairman. The majority of the members want to have a meeting to listen to their views. I agree. Say we say 8 do not come. 8 have indicated that they do not come, and then so be it. But if the other 4 do not file in a return because there is a problem with their assistance, then if we cannot confirm whether they don't come or whether they are not going to speak before us, and if we don't have a meeting then it's unfair to them. If just a single member who wants to speak and he has sufficient grounds, and if it is agreeable to the PWSC, the assistant can come along and give evidence under oath. If we cannot accommodate that, that's unfair to us. We can deal with the 8 who have indicated that they don't want to submit they don't want to make any representation before us. I really appreciate Mr. James Toh's imagination. He can even think on behalf of the members who apply for late membership, and also the thinking of the assistants. I think it's entirely the right of the member to vote for or against the decision. It's also entirely the right of the member to come before the committee. And I don't think you should put the member under trial. Well, unless you make use of the electoral PNP ordinance or you use the other powers under the rules of procedure, that shouldn't be done. What world is it? It's really ridiculous. You can vote down, you can reject the application. We just go through the normal procedures. That's all. Mr. Ronnie Tong, I just find it strange. And then Mr. Yip is already a member, and how can he represent those who have applied for late membership? Well, we don't need to spend our time on discussing whether we know the intention of the members who have made late application. We can invite them to, we can give them an invitation, and if they want to come, then they can come. Well, I have never heard that a member can put the blame on his assistant. Say, if I am late at the meeting, I cannot say my chauffeur is going too slowly. I cannot put the blame on them. Say, if, the Prime Minister has done his best, and yet the matter failed, and he has to take the responsibility. Mr. Chen, I just hope that Mr. Kwok Him can explain why he's so sure about the attitude of the 12 members. Does he represent the 12, or is he the worm in the hearts of these 12 members? Why is he so sure that they will not come? Is he controlling the fate of these 12 members? Ms. Yip, if what I have spoken has been misheard, then members can listen to the record. I've never said I represent them. I just say that they have the right. Mr. Tong said I seem to be representing them, but I am not. I just repeat what Mr. Toh has said. Please do not turn the facts upside down. Mr. James Toh, since Mr. Yip says he doesn't represent the 12, so he doesn't represent the 12, in saying that the 12 will not come or the 12 are not prepared to speak before the PWSC. In fact, we just give them a chance. This subcommittee just gives them a chance. And if some of them don't want to come, so be it. They can tell the secretary, or they can tell the clerk. But we cannot assume that all 12 don't want to come. We cannot deprive them of the chance. All right, thank you very much. I think I have already got enough advice from you. I will ask the clerk ASAP, if at all possible, within today. Seek members' reply on the 3 possible sessions, and at the same time, the 12 members who have made late applications will indicate whether they will come at the special meeting. Of course, it is based on your views, and then I will make a decision. Okay, please do it within today. And our next meeting is the 29th, so it's better to have that dealt with before the 29th. Okay? You have that order, Madam Clerk. The clerk has given me 2 letters. One from Mr. Sin Chung Kai and another from Mr. Cheung Kok Chi. But I just received that yesterday, so the Secretary is of the view that the matter should not be discussed today. In fact, there are 2 letters asked for reshuffling the order of the agenda items. My view is that since it is not on the agenda, I can only deal with it at the next meeting. I hope Mr. Sin and Mr. Cheung take note of this. Let us move on to agenda item number 2, and that is forecast of submissions for the 2014-15 Nurse Show session. That is an information paper and 20 discussion papers for members to deal with. I'd like to remind members that if you have only direct or pecuniary interest, please declare your interest according to ROP 33A and declare your interest before you speak in respect of the matter. I also like to draw members' attention to ROP 48, or 84, with regard to voting under direct and pecuniary interest. Since the beginning of the 2001-2002 LegCo session, at the beginning of each session, the administration provides an information paper to the PWSC listing the items that will be submitted to the PWSC for discussion, so as to enable members to have a better and earlier understanding of the matter. The Secretariat has already invited the relevant panels to indicate what items they want to discuss prior to the submission to the PWSC, so that the Secretariat can make suitable arrangements for such items. As for the officials attending to answer members' questions, they are Mr. Wang Chi-ban, Heritage Commissioner, Director of ASD, Mr. Leung, Chief, also from ASD, Mr. Leung, Director of CDD, Mr. Han, Director of Drainage Services, Mr. Chong, Director of Highways, Mr. Lau, Director of Water Services, Mr. Lam, AD, HAD, Ms. Wong, also from HAD, Mr. Cho, Chief Engineer, Mr. Lai, ADEPD, Mr. Khan, PEPO EPD. Right. Now invite officials to take us through the paper. Who will take the lead? Yes, please. Yes, Mr. Young. Under Secretary. Mr. Young from the FSTB. As said by the chairman, every year at the first session of the meeting of TBSC, we submit a paper on the list of submissions that would likely be submitted to the PWSC for discussion. As in paper PWSCI 1 2014-15 number 7, we expect in the coming legislative session there will be 89 items which will be put before the PWSC for discussion. Among the 89 items, 21 of them were submitted in the previous legislative session but were not dealt with. And also like to state that because such items have not been dealt with, the average delay is about 6 months for each project. And the estimated cost increase will be about $1 billion. But of the 89 items, they are the best estimates at the present stage. The timetable is subject to progress of works and also subject to the consultation before various panels or at different localities. Amendments may have to be made. I hope members can deal with these items ASAP. All right. Members are invited to ask questions, if any, 4 minutes each. A show of hands. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, followed by Mr. Kwok Ka-ki. Chairman, that's exactly the point. Yesterday, I sent you a letter stating that we are aware of the items in the backlog. Some items are controversial, some are less controversial. I hope that we can deal with the less controversial ones. Say in my letter, I mentioned the Area 36 Fanling, a primary school, 2 special schools in To Kwa Wan, Sung On Street, the construction of a new wing of Lu Ming Choi Secondary School. I hope that we can deal with the less controversial items and also the items that are easier to get a consensus. Now, I have to rearrange the order after I have read your papers. I just want the Undersecretary to respond to our views and adjust the order of the items to be submitted to the PWSC. Put the easier one first and the difficult ones later, so that we will be able to deal with the backlog more efficiently. I've already put down my suggestion according to what I know in the letter dated the 21st of October. Probably when the chairman may also follow that up.
Do you want Mr. Young to respond to you? Yes, if he thinks so. If he thinks it is appropriate, of course, I would also hope my letter should be handled. Now, the government may have a logic behind its paper order. That is, which bureau is ready first gets a higher priority. However, for us, I think we should handle the less controversial items first. This is my logic. My hope is that we can speed up the scrutiny of these projects. Mr. Young, Now we have 89 items and they are not on the agenda yet. Well, 20 of them were brought forward from the last session, and the average delay is now 6 months because there has been major delay. So I hope that we can handle them as soon as possible. Next, Dr. Kwok, Chairman. I hope Mr. Young can give me a clearer explanation. Yes, I understand that those 20-odd items have been delayed for quite a while. However, some of these projects are really related to people's livelihood. For example, the refurbishment projects of the Hong Kong Buddhist Hospital. And you say that because the tender validity period has expired, so that's why we really have to do something about it. Well, I would like to clarify the government has already taken away the Hong Kong Buddhist Hospital application. I really think it's ununderstandable. And the government says that, well, according to the agenda, we have to look at the strategic studies for artificial islands in the central waters first. And it's accorded the top priority. As members of this council or the public, we really cannot understand why. Now, do you have a mechanism so that issues or projects more related to people's livelihood can be handled first? Now you want to give top priority to the artificial islands. We are talking about something very remote and there has been no consensus. So what's the government's mechanism? How about the order? So the Bureau has prepared a paper first and you give it top priority and you just ignore people's livelihood? Mr. Yang? Thank you, Chairman. Maybe I can reiterate what I said. Now, just now you mentioned the Hong Kong Buddhist Hospital. Now, because it was not approved in the last session, so that's why we need a new tender and it cannot be put on our present agenda. And for the other 20 items, they suffer an average delay of 6 months. Now, many of them are now facing tender validity period problems. And they are about different things. For example, land and housing supply, infrastructure, schools, community facilities. So all these are quite urgent items. We have considered the importance of these items, the urgency of them, the progress of them, and then we put together an order. Well, he hasn't answered my question. I asked about a mechanism. Well, let me use your order now. You have to convince me how come strategic studies for artificial islands in the central waters are more important than item 10. For example, the community hall and the early training center at Pak Tin Estate. And an educated person or a logical person would know what is important. These projects are not controversial and it's easy for members to reach a consensus on them. So how come these projects are less important than the artificial islands, which is item number 1? I really query its importance, its urgency, and it's also very controversial. So I asked you about a mechanism. Now let me make my question clearer. When you put together the mechanism, officials of which level make the decision? You yourself, the financial secretary, or the CE, or the CS? Well, they think that the artificial islands are most important. If you don't let us carry out the strategic studies for artificial islands, then we won't do anything else. Dr. Kwok's time is up. So, Mr. Young, can you just give a brief answer? The government would look at all the projects comprehensively. We will have to balance the importance among them. Dr. Kwok talked about the central waters artificial islands. Actually, many meetings were held for it. We have discussed for a dozen hours, and there were lengthy discussions. So we think that it is appropriate for us to put this forward to the PWSC. I would like to remind other members, now we are talking about PWSC I 2014-15-7. And just now you have been talking about the order of today's agenda items, so this is not exactly about this paper. The next, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, I would like to ask some questions about statistics. Maybe Mr. Young can give me an answer. First of all, about the 89 items. And I would like to know what the cost estimates are. And for the 21 of them, that's brought forward from the last session. So how much money are we talking about? And Chairman, I remember that in the last session, the PWSC has handled 21 projects. So for the number of projects, well, we just handled half of them in the last session. So how much money have we approved in the last session? As for the order of items, because I was the chairman of the last PWSC, and I adhere to the rules. The role of the PWSC is to look at the public works projects put forward to us by the government, and we would express their views, and then we would make a recommendation to the Finance Committee. We do not have the final decision. The final decision is made by the FC. We all understand that. So when it comes to the order, we respect the Financial Secretary's proposed order. For some items, they may be about long-term developments. If you look at our projects, some are short-term, some are medium-term, some are long-term. For long-term projects, it doesn't mean that there's no urgency to start it. Because, well, these long-term projects, they may affect Hong Kong's future. Let me cite this as an example. I am not starting to discuss this paper yet. This is about the strategic studies for artificial islands in the central waters. This is what the SAR government wants to do. It wants to enhance the land supply for Hong Kong in the long run. So if this study makes the proves that the project is feasible, then the artificial islands will be built. If we do not start doing it today, in the future, we will be facing a serious problem of land shortage. We do not have land for housing and for economic developments. So you cannot just look at the time frame of projects. Some projects would have a long-term influence. And as an engineer myself, I know that we have to do feasibility studies, we have to design, we have to build, and then we have to commission, to test, etc. And we have to do all these step by step. And when we are just at the study stage, it doesn't mean that it's not urgent. So, Chairman, in the past, that's what I thought. The PWSC itself might not know all the reasons for the order put forward by the government. According to the past experiences, some items might not be regarded as controversial, but there has been filibustering, so the government cannot guess what members would do. Well, Mr. Young, you can answer Dr. Lo's questions now. He asked about the total cost estimates. First of all, about the 89 items and the total cost estimates. Now we are still doing the calculation, so at the moment we cannot provide you with the exact figures. As for the last session, the PwC held 23 meetings, only 24 projects were discussed. When it's compared to the previous session, there were 13 meetings and 48 projects were handled. And 27 of the projects last session have been brought forward, and the total cost is $50 billion. And 24 items have been discussed by the PwC. When they were submitted to the FC, the FC only approved 13 projects, and the total cost was $3.6 billion, much less than those projects of the previous year. Ms. Claudia Mo? Now we have to understand that the biggest function of the Legislative Council is to monitor the government. I don't understand why the Legislative now gives people an impression that we have to cooperate with the government as to what should be discussed, when these things should be discussed. All these are decided by the government. The government takes the lead. This is problematic. Just now, Dr. Low said that, well, he was the previous chairman of the PwC and he has been respecting the government's decision. Well, has the government respected the Legislative Council? Respect is something mutual. Low Wai-Kwok also said that the Legislative does not have sufficient information to decide on the order to be accorded. So then why doesn't the government give us enough information? Let us be frank. The LegCo is now carrying out a non-cooperation movement, and this is initiated by the Democratic or the Pan-Democrats because the government ignores people's views. Yes, we can discuss with you. We do not want to cooperate. It doesn't mean that we will not attend our meetings. We will still discharge our duties, but we will have to look at the order of the items. We will have to look at the importance, the urgencies of the items. For anything that's about education, in particular special education, or about healthcare service, healthcare facilities, well, these things are all very important, and we would definitely look at them. So, but this has to be discussed. We cannot be led by the nose by the government. We are now looking at PwC bracket 2014-15-7. So please speak on this paper. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, for the contents of this paper, it is related to what we are going to discuss later. That is, we should have a detailed discussion on the order of items. All along at PwC meetings, we have been adhering to the order proposed by the government. But does this meet the needs of the public? We have never queried that. But in the past 2 years, we have seen the discussions at PwC meetings. It's very obvious that there is a gap between the government's proposed order and people's expectations. As to which item will be put forward to us first, we really don't know. Members have made some very important points. That is there a mechanism? Is there a criterion for setting these orders? Can we get information from the government with regard to the rationale behind such an order? And also, in the past few years, we also encountered a major problem.
The order set by the government has ignored the capacity of the construction industry, so the construction cost has been escalating. We have to face the problem of budget overruns. At the end of the day, the taxpayers foot the bill. if the arrangement by the administration is not appropriate, if the administration is over-ambitious, forcing members of the public to foot the bill, that's unfair to the community at large. And if we are not in control, if we cannot remind the government and warn the government of their bad arrangements, then we have failed the people. We really need the criteria for setting the order in the list. And what is your assessment of the industry's capacity to deal with the amount of public works projects? The average age of the construction industry workers is about 50. That's already a high risk factor. Ms. McMeekin, and then Ms. Alice Mack, and then Ms. Albert Chen. Now, please, if you want to speak, you can just press the button in front of you. You don't need to raise your hand. Chairman, I want to speak on the paper. Now, the Buddhist hospital has to be retendered. Among the 80-odd projects, apart from the Buddhist hospital project, which has been delayed, and there's a need to retender the project, are there other projects which have to be retendered or which are likely to be retendered since the tender period or the valid contract validity will soon expire? 8 have already been tendered among the 21 projects, and the validity period will soon expire within a few months. The only project that has to be retendered is the Buddhist hospital project. Can you give us the dates as to when such validity periods have to be will expire? We don't want the projects to be retendered so that the projects are delayed. In fact, we want them to go ahead ASAP. The Undersecretary. There are 8 items on the agenda which have been tendered. The deadline for each project will be provided after in due course. Albert Chan and then Leung Yiu-chung. Chairman, I hope that the administration clarified this because I'm a bit confused. With regard to PwC papers, I don't know whether my understanding is correct. Some papers are put before us before being tendered. Or is it that all papers put before us are projects which have been tendered or the outcome of the tenders have been ascertained? Who would like to answer the question? Mr. Y. Well, both. If the project is urgent, in order to know the price so that we can get funding earlier, then we only apply for funding after we've completed the tender exercise. Generally speaking, we will only seek approval before we embark on tender exercise. I don't know what criteria you have adopted. Who is to decide which is urgent, which is not? Sometimes the applications are before us without being tendered, and we are not told whether the project has been tendered or not. Now, and sometimes they say that the project has to be retendered so that it has to come before us later. So it seems that the administration can have it both ways. It is up to them. How do you know whether after the tender exercise it will become more expensive? Why you apply before you put the project to tender, and why for some project you put before us after the approval is given? Well, we put it in the paper. We put everything in the paper clearly. As to which project has been tendered or not, it depends on the complexity of the project and also whether our estimate is can be accurate or not. If the degree of accuracy is low, then we will better tender the project first before making application. I do not rule out that in some papers you've told us that the project has been tendered or not. I am not sure you really put down everything in the paper, in particular whether the project has been tendered or not. Mr. Chairman, each paper has carry a statement whether it has been tendered or not. And we also state the expected tender date. If it has not been tendered, then we will state when do we expect the project to be tendered. I don't know whether he can help. In the past year, can he tabulate which project has been tendered, which project has not been tendered, and why some projects have been tendered first and some projects have not been, so that I can know the thinking of the administration more clearly. You can also work with the clerk to see if in your papers you can state more clearly that the project has been tendered or has not been tendered, so that when we study the paper we know what has been done, and there will not be any misunderstanding and leading to some faults. Yeah, we can provide the data in the past 2 years. As I've said, we stated that very clearly in the paper. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung and then Mr. Chen Kim-po. Chairman, just now when answering Mr. Lou's question, the Undersecretary says that he would list the projects and also the approved projects and also the data. I don't know what's the purpose of that. Probably he wants to show the efficiency of our meetings. This is the first time I'm a member. I want to know what's the purpose of this meeting. Is it just for efficiency, or is it that we need to consider whether a project proposed is worth supporting or not? Or are we going to study the project as to the strengths and weaknesses and what improvements can be made? If that is the case, then I just want to know why a project can first be tendered before putting to us for application. If that's the case, then that is fait accompli. I just hope that I am not a rubber stamp. I have the duty to monitor the government's performance, and I should have the right to add or delete something from the proposals so as to perfect the project. Do you expect to be a rubber stamp? If that is the case, then we don't need a meeting. Or you just read out the project and then say yes or no. What's the point of having a meeting? I just want to know why a project has first been tendered and then put before us for discussion. Everything is set, or everything is cast in iron. And what can we do about it? And then if we reject it, then we will be blamed for delaying the project and for raising project cost. So they have a lot to explain. What's the purpose of the meeting? What's the role of the PwC? That's the first question. My second question is a constructive proposal. Mr. Sin Chung Kai has made a list. Will the administration spend some time to look at the list proposed by Mr. Sin Chung Kai instead of just trying to ram through your proposal and your order and force us to dance according to your tune? I think it's better for them to consider Mr. Sin's proposal. The terms of reference of the PwC can be seen from sections 1, 2, and 3 of the subcommittee's procedure. We discussed the items provided by the administration and assist the FC by making our recommendations. And that's very clear. Mr. Leung has put a question to the administration. So who would like to answer the question? The Permanent Secretary, Mr. Y. Inviting a tender doesn't mean approving a tender. If we have not got the funding, we state very clearly that we may not award the tender. And after getting the money, we will award the tender. We just want to shorten the process. Now, that's putting a lot of pressure on us. The Buddhist hospital is an example. Has the administration respected the council in the sense that it is not a rubber stamp as to and when and what the PwC should approve? We assist you, but it doesn't mean that we would give the approval, whatever the proposal is. Have you assisted us in discussing the matter and then say if there is a delay, you just put the blame on us? Mr. Chen Kim-po and then Ms. Ip Kim-yun. Thank you, Chairman. I've heard that many members have asked for setting the order, say education, medical services, they should be approved, but many members of the view that development is very important, finding land is very important. In Hong Kong, there is a division of power. Each part of the government has its role. Only the government, only the executive can consider the overall need of the community. You can disagree with them, but they have the manpower, they have the expertise. And the views on tendering, on the tendering exercise is very confusing. You should not pretend to be an expert. The government, or the administration rather, can consider the capacity of the construction industry, town planning and other matters. It is suitable for the administration to consider the priority of the projects. It doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to discuss the matter. Say, for example, the Central Waters artificial island. We have discussed that for more than a month. You cannot blame the chairman for not giving us enough time. In fact, it's a matter of the will, rather. You can approve, you can disapprove. People are entitled to hold their own view, but the overall consideration should be made by the administration instead of by us who have individual preferences. Otherwise, we are in breach of the division of power arrangements. Say, for example, for the artificial island, we have discussed it for a very long time, and people will be disappointed if its order is reshuffled to the end of the queue, and the cost will escalate. If you just not cooperate, then the administration will go to the FC directly. They can do so. If we are irrational, if we are not cooperative, I support them going directly to the FC. Hong Kong is torn apart, families are torn. Is not necessary to further the division. And anyone who truly fight for the interests of Hong Kong will not support it. If you continue to do that, your votes will go away, and you will not be here in the future.
Next, Mr. Ip Kim-yun, and then Mr. Gary Fan. Mr. Ip, Chairman. Well, Mr. Sin Chung Kai asked if the order can be rearranged. I think this is really rational and responsible. We understand that the President's Council is different from those in the past. on some items, we may have very lengthy discussions. In the past, the Council might have been simpler. Even though an item was very controversial, a decision could be reached at 1 or 2 meetings. But now our discussions tend to be very long. In the last session, we've seen some very good examples. Some items are put behind some very controversial items, so that's why they could not have been handled. And Hong Kong Buddhist Hospital is a very good example. What we are trying to do now is to avoid a repeat of this. Just now, Mr. Lo Wai Kwok said that some items should be deferred, but I think the concept is exactly the contrary. Well, for less controversial items, we should accord a higher priority to them so that we can handle them as early as possible. Otherwise, we are setting obstacles for ourselves, and the less controversial items will never be approved. So I would like to ask the chairman, what is the arrangements now? So we receive a letter or we receive a submission, and then we will discuss it at the next meeting. And if the items order is to be rearranged, we cannot do it right away, right? We will only take effect at the next meeting. Then this is inefficient. Or after receiving a letter from Mr. Sin Chung Kai, as the chairman, you have the power to decide on the agenda items of the next meeting. I think there are several points that you need to take into account. That is how important it is when it comes to people's livelihood. Is it controversial? If it's not controversial, then it should be advanced. And if there is a tender validity period, we should also attach importance to it. So these 3 points should be considered before you rearrange the order. And also, in the course of doing this, you can consult members from different parties. So the assessment would not be subjective. The chairman can discuss with all the parties and the government. The government should also have its wishes heard. The government said that it would look at things comprehensively, but the chairman should look at things from a political angle. We should handle the items that are more urgent for the people. Then we will focus on the controversial projects. I think only by doing so can we be regarded as responsible. Mr. Sin Chung Kai's letter is not on the agenda. So originally, I didn't plan to talk about it in detail. But now we have all spoken, and I think I have the responsibility to tell you what I think initially. Just now, Mr. Im Kun-yun made a good point. That is, I cannot suddenly change the order of the agenda items. According to the PWSC procedures, I have the power to look at the agenda items set out for every meeting, and then I can make a decision. As Dr. Lo Wai Kwok said just now, actually I have been the vice chairman of PWSC for 8 years myself. Well, there has been a tradition in this subcommittee. That is, we follow the order set by the government. If we really want to rearrange it, it departs from our past practice. And as the chairman of the PWSC, I have the responsibility to listen to the views of members, our legal advisor, and the government. And then I will make a decision. And I won't just make this decision lightly. And if I were to make this decision, I will hand down a ruling in writing. So this is what I will do. I will not change the order for the next meeting, and you cannot just sit down at 8:30 and say that you want to move agenda item 4 forward. So I've listened to your views, and I continue to welcome your opinions. Government, well, this is a request that we are facing, and the chairman would have to make a decision. So this is what I plan to do. I won't just sit here and say that we would rearrange the order just verbally. Okay, let us listen to the next member. Mr. Gary Fan is not here. The next, Dr. Chiang Lai-wen, Chairman. My view is like this. Now, it's difficult to amend the basic law. However, for a meeting, I think it will be quite flexible for you to make arrangements. Some members say that less controversial projects should be looked at first, and Mr. Ip says that we should do the more urgent things for the people. I think it's reasonable. And there is an important factor that we have to look at. Now there are some new items, and they may be related to the excavation of tunnels, caves, etc. And we all know that the construction market in Hong Kong is saturated. We do not have enough workforce. We do not have enough laborers. So can we kind of procrastinate them or delay them so that some other projects can go ahead first? And for some other projects, if they are of a smaller scale and they may have a direct impact on the residents of certain districts, then I hope the chairman can talk to the government and priority should be accorded to them. For example, Project 20, a special school at To Kwa Wan, I think we should look at it first, because for students with special needs, this is something essential. And these are not very expensive projects. It's just about $200 million. And just now, members mentioned artificial islands and urban underground space. Well, these are controversial things. But the government is now just asking for funding for preliminary studies. And they will have to go to the relevant panels again with more information. That is whether such projects should really go ahead. So they would need more consultant studies. As for the artificial islands, they've been talking about it for a long time, so they really need more information. They need funding for further studies before they can put forward a more concrete proposal. So, Chairman, I think you can talk to the relevant departments of the government and see if something can be done. For PWSC, it is supposed to approve projects that would help social development and benefit people. Thank you, Mr. Wai and Mr. Yang. You've heard members' views. Not only the Pan-Democrats say so, and this is something we have to face sooner or later. We are not trying to delay projects deliberately. Members have told you what they think. Mr. Sin puts forward another list, and most of them are schools, and there is a special center for infants, for young children, etc. So these are things we really have to handle. Mr. Gary Fan, has he come back? I'm back, Chairman. Sorry, I just went out. Chairman, we're talking about the order of agenda items. The government assumes that members have to accept the order they set. I think this is not conducive to the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Dr. Lo Wai-kwok said that he was the previous chairman of the PWSC and he could not judge which project was controversial. But these are facts. Members have asked a lot of questions and there were filibusterings. So those were controversial projects. Now, we can't just say things that we do not believe in. So government officials who do not know what projects are controversial, you cannot just assume that if you submit projects, we would not object to them. Now, there are a lot of items that are more urgent. For example, this center in To Kwa Wan, schools for cross-border students, and at Yau Yu Wan Chin, a quarters for the customs department will be built, etc. These are more urgent, but the artificial islands will be built in 20 years. Why do you want to give it the priority? Why don't you look at the order again? Mr. Ip Kin Yun says that Mr. Sin Chung Kai made a concrete proposal, and I think this should be taken into account. Well, we should give the government some time to consider this, and if this subcommittee has come to a consensus as to what the order should be, I think the government should respond. We are people's representatives. We know what people want. Mr. Chen Kin-po says that only the government can look at things comprehensively. Then we don't have to sit here. We can go home. Well, we are legislators. Of course, we can also look at things comprehensively. So how can he say that? At the end of the day, he's just worried about votes. He threatens us that our votes would be lost. What kind of mindset is that? So we hope that the government will listen to us. I think Mr. Sin Chung Kai's suggestion is good and something should be done about it. I think the government officials have heard our views, so let me talk to them after the meeting. Mr. Tam Yu Chung and then Mr. Lee Cheuk Yen. Now, for each project, different members may have different views. I am a anti-Northwest member, so I hope that the projects there can be completed as early as possible. So members alone cannot solve the problem of order, and it's a tradition that the government sets the order. In particular, when it comes to the projects, there are different categories, and they get upgraded in time. So from the initial stage, you have a concept, and then you carry out studies, and then it comes to tendering, etc., etc. So it would be upgraded from category C to B to A. So there is an order, and it is essential. Well, the government does this step by step, and before each project, the government would have a lot of discussions with us, and eventually would come to the PWSC. So if the order of agenda items is to be decided solely by legislators, I don't think that's appropriate. Now the Pan-Democrats are initiating a non-cooperation movement, and as far as I know, that means filibustering. And if we filibuster on everything, then people's livelihood will be affected. And also, project cost will go up all the time. This is what I'm worried about.
We carefully study each paper. If it's worth supporting, we support it. If we have reservations, we express our reservations. But if you try to do filibustering, you try to drag the feet in order to be not cooperative, achieve the purpose of the non-cooperative movement, that is unfair to the public, that's not good to the community. Among these 80-odd projects, the Liantang Hengyuanwai project, the supplementary funding is very urgent. And if we keep dragging that, the cost will continue to escalate. And if the resources for price escalation is put to doing something for the welfare of people, more people will be benefited. You should not try to argue over the ranking of the projects. I just want to ask the situation of the Hengyuanwai border crossing. The Hengyuanwai border crossing officials, who can answer the question? Mr. Horn. Mr. Tam's question, I think, is the situation or the progress of Hengyuanwai crossing. The site formation is going smoothly. 40% has been formed. It has been completed. Our concern is about the relocation of the Chok Yin village, said the speaker. We have liaised with the villages. We've got their understanding. Last month, at the end of last month, by and large, we have completed the village relocation. If I may be given a little bit more time concerning the site formation works and infrastructure of Hengyuanwai, we really want to add more funding. We have invited tender. At the development panel meeting, we explained that the greater the delay, the higher the cost. Li Chaoyan and then Fernando Zhang. Li Chaoyan. I think Mr. Tam Yu Chung has tried to misinterpret our non-cooperative movement. Our non-cooperative movement is to cooperate with the people and not cooperate with the government. C.Y. Leung discriminates against the poor. He favors the rich. He says balanced participation. But balanced participation is just conspiracy between officials and business people. And of course, we should not cooperate with the executive, which is a conspiracy between the officials and the rich. And we should only work for the people. And that's why many of us joined the PWSC. The purpose is this. We want to go against the convention. The convention is that the government has monopolized the agenda. The administration has monopolized the agenda. The loyalists are defending the government and making the way for the officials so they can do whatever they like, and therefore people's view and voices are not heard in the PWSC. The so-called comprehensive planning by the government is only planning which favors the rich and the big consortia. their plan is not for the benefit of the people, and we do not accept this kind of planning approach. And that's why we want to rearrange the order of the agenda so that those that really benefits the people will be dealt with first, instead of dealing with the items that favors the rich. We have already stated very clearly that we want to turn the table. The order should not be set by the administration, but the order should be set through negotiation. It's not that we call the shots. We can negotiate. Mr. Sin Chung Kai has already made a proposal and set out the priorities from our perspective. I want to ask Mr. Wai, or the administration at large, do you intend to talk to the chairman and vice chairman? Usually the agenda is set through discussion between the chairman, vice chairman, and the administration. Will you discuss with the chairman and vice chairman on the order of the agenda items? If that can be done, then there is no need to deal with Mr. Sin Chung Kai's proposal. He just asked to build the schools first. If that's okay, then you just arrange the agenda items according to the new order. I just want to ask the Permanent Secretary whether he wants to adopt a new approach, a new thinking, a new mode of cooperation. The Permanent Secretary. I think Mr. Yang is in a better position to answer the question. Concerning agenda items and the order on the agenda items, I've already stated the administration's position. We want to follow our established practice to deal with the items on the agenda of the PWSC. I've heard the views of members. Our view is that we should follow the convention. In considering the agenda items, we've considered the matter comprehensively. Each project has its own order. It depends on when an item is put before the subcommittee, we need to consider the momentum and the pace of each project. So they just want to adhere to the convention, hegemonic mindset. And I think I'm forced to ask the chairman to make a ruling to put other projects in front of, put other projects in the front. Well, I am in the seat of the chair. If there is an agreement, then let us negotiate. If there can be an agreement, then let us negotiate. And if there is no agreement, then I have to make a ruling. Otherwise, we can't move forward. All right. After Mr. Li Chia-yan, then Mr. Fernando Chang, and then followed by Mr. Leung Chi-Chang. In fact, the government is not cooperative. I heard from Ms. Chang. She agrees that many items before the PWSC, in particular those that are directly related to people's livelihood, should be dealt with priority, instead of dealing with items which are controversial. They are controversial, and if there will be a lot of discussion. So why can't you put more urgent items which are related to people's living be advanced? That is reasonable. Do the easier bit first. We can see that there is resistance in the community. This council is always monopolized by the loyalists. Although we represent more people, we have less seats than the loyalists. We are bullied by the loyalists. They are unreasonable. Today, we have put forward a reasonable request, but the administration has turned it down. Mr. Tam Yu-chung said that Lintang-Heng-Yunwai border crossing is very urgent. What is the project? It asked for supplementary funding because they made a wrong estimate. The increase is from $16 billion to $24 billion, an increase of more than 50%. That's the problem of the administration. As for the artificial island in central waters, it's a very controversial item. That's the biggest reclamation project in history. Should we start a study on that? That is already very controversial. All the environmental groups, as far as I know, are against it. Why should it be put in the front? Now we've seen nurseries, child care centers, primary schools in the North District. We are short of school places, special schools, integrated schools. Why can't these projects be put at the front for discussion earlier? Let's be reasonable. Even if we adopt a non-cooperative approach, it doesn't mean that we don't care about people's living. Why you use people's livelihood as your chips? This is a moment in history in which the number of pan-democrats in this PWSC is more than the number of loyalists, and we should take this opportunity to right the wrong. I support Mr. Sin Chung Kai's proposal, and I hope the administration can be more cooperative. At the present stage, if the administration insists on using people's livelihood as their bargaining chips, and the CE is of the view that democracy will force the policies to favor those who have incomes less than $14,000 per month, then think about it. Shouldn't you care for the poor? Our poverty gap is the widest among all the advanced territories. Our policies favors the rich. We should right the wrong. Next, Mr. Leung Chi-chang.
議程嘅先後次序呢，咁過往呢都係。
As for the order on the agenda items, it is the practice that it is between the administration and the PWSC. Today, some members asked to change that convention. Well, if you do not do a big reshuffling, that is okay. It's just about one or two items. Now, when the matter is put before us, usually it has gone through certain panels. If you reshuffle the order comprehensively, then some items may just be listed on other panels and have not been discussed. Of the 80-odd items or so, some items may not be ready. Say, for example, the revenue tally in Kai-Tak or columbarium. The items may not have been consulted in the districts. These are important items. Say columbarium, they are very important items. Why can't you raise that? There's a need to talk to the administration. Without discussion, and it will be impossible for us to study those items. We shouldn't just oppose for position's sake. As for using controversy as a reason for defer a particular project, you can do it from an operational point of view. Sometimes I also say do the easier bit first. The difficult ones may not have progress. There are many things which are urgent. If you ask priority, And then you put anti-West and Yuen Long items first. I think they're important. If you continue to argue over that, that will be a waste of time. Some are just trying to argue for argument's sake. They are trying to be non-cooperative. Is it right?
同時即係大家可以將一啲呢，即係覺得係較為容易而又
The controversial items. Well, there are many items that cannot be resolved. At the end of the day, nothing can be done. I agree we can discuss. In particular, the chairman and vice chairman can talk to the administration on controversial items as to whether they should be deferred. You better discuss with them first.
After the meeting, I will discuss with the government and try to find some room. Are there any more first round questions? Mr. Chen Kam-lam? Chairman, well, for PWSC, actually, it was a very practical committee. Projects were submitted to us and we discussed them. For each project, the government would have already submitted it to the relevant panels before submitting it to PWSC. So members did have enough opportunities to express their views. So when it comes to the PWSC, we would not look at policies anymore. We would mainly look at the technical issues concerning these projects. However, now we've already held 2 meetings and nothing has been done. We are reduced to a speak-only meeting. Well, we are talking about order all the time, which one should be accorded higher priority, etc. So it's just like Harcourt Road outside. Who puts the barricades there? Not the government, but our members. How are we going to go through? There's barricades. We have to obtain your permission. Dr. Fernando Zhang made it very clear. In the past, he said that, the pro-establishment camp had the majority, but now the pan-democrats the majority. So that's why we have to say, in the past, we were bullied by you. To be frank, the pro-establishment camp has never bullied the pan-democrats. We didn't accord new priorities to discussion items. We respect the minorities in the council. You want to filibuster, you want to speak on one item time after time, you were free to do so. I think the public has clear eyes. Today, it is suggested that the agenda items order be rearranged. So I think this will also happen to the ESC and the FC. That is, the item order will have to be rearranged in accordance with your intention and favor. It has nothing to do with the urgency of the projects anymore. And just now, Mr. Tam Yu-cho made a very good point. He's a Northwest NT councillor. Of course, he wants the projects in his district to be approved first. It's the same for councillors of different districts. And now these problems are introduced into the PWSC and there will be more fights. Dr. Fernando Zhang says now they are the majority and so they will have the say. So even for some minute projects, they have to be approved first. And for long-term controversial projects, we shouldn't look at them now. So what's the result? The society will be at a standstill. It's just like our political reform. Nothing will be improved. The pan-democrats are creating all this. Of course, I don't want to see this kind of situation. But I still hope the government, or I still hope the chairman can talk to the government. I hope you can be practical and adhere to our convention. Please do not mess up the work of PWSC. Last speaker for the first round, Mr. Michael Tian. Thank you, Chairman. Originally, I didn't intend to speak because I'm not very good at this kind of disputes. But I cannot stand anymore. I have not prepared a speech. I just speak from my heart. Several years ago, I decided to become a politician. I never expected that after a 2-hour meeting, we are still nowhere. Later on at the council meeting, I will ask a question about the definition of passenger capacity of buses. I think a lot of problems are related to definitions. Now, what is the definition of a controversial project? What does controversial means? So, for any items that are objected by the pan-democrats, it would be regarded as controversial. I have been a councillor for 2 years. Most of the projects objected by the pan-democrats are related to the long-term development of Hong Kong. It's related to making a bigger pie. Now, if Hong Kong wants to be a stable and prosperous society, one thing is very important. We have to have a bigger pie. Otherwise, when the population ages, when all the costs rise, we will eventually be in the red. So that's why I also want to play a role in this. I want to make a bigger pie for Hong Kong. And I think long-term plans are very important. Let me talk about my background. I'm from the commercial sector. I am still learning a lot of things. When I read management philosophy books, they always tell me that if you go back to your office and there are 10 things to handle, what things do you handle first? The most difficult ones or the easiest one? Chairman, you're smiling. You must have read these books. The books will tell you not to defer important but difficult issues. As a responsible leader, you should face up to difficulties. The most difficult thing should be handled first while you are still clear-headed. So for me, if a project is controversial, you don't delay it unless it's not conducive to Hong Kong in the long run. Otherwise, no matter how controversial it is, we as legislators should face up to the difficulty. If we have disagreement, discuss. Let's discuss for a long time. If you want to revise certain proposals, do it. And then eventually we vote. We follow all these procedures. I think controversial things should be handled. We should not bury our heads in the sand as if we were ostrich. We have to face the world. If our generation do not think for Hong Kong's future, then what will happen 10 years down the road? A dozen years ago, people didn't thought about this. So that's why we are facing so many difficulties today. Sorry, I am a bit naked today. Okay, there are still some members who would like to speak. For the first round, we still have Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, and second round, Mr. Sin Chung Kai and Albert Chan. We only have 5 minutes left. We don't have enough time, so I would like to ask members, do you agree that we extend the meeting by 15 minutes? If there's no objection, then let us extend the meeting to 10:45 because there's still a council meeting at 11. We cannot extend anymore. First, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Your mic is not on. Now it's on. Mr. Michael Tian is right. Some things must be done. And there should be no bloodshed and no concession. Then C.Y. Leung should really do something to the political reform, but now he's only adding fuel to the fire. He says that for those making $14,000 or less a month, if they are given a vote, that would be a big problem. That's adding fuel to the fire. And he says for those making less than 40,000, if they are allowed to vote, then it would be a serious problem because the policy will be lopsided towards the poor. And people like Michael Tan would not make any more money. What kind of a politician is he? Is he crazy? Michael Chan, I think you should talk to him on the phone. Has he gone mad? If that is the case, then I will tell the central authorities. Well, I saw the CNN interview. I think that's incredible. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, we are now discussing paper PWSCI number 7. Well, we should face up to difficulties. The whole of Hong Kong is talking about this. We are not talking about whether we should speed up the construction of a tunnel. And Xi Jinping is also listening to our news every day. New York Times says that. Nobody says no. This is a political issue. And the deadlocks must be resolved. I don't want to sit here arguing all this with you. And secondly, about this paper. Our subcommittee need to approve a lot of infrastructural projects. We have doubts about them. It's all because of you. Mr. John Zhang says that $230 billion will be used to set up a future fund. We are worried about that. Well, Michael Tian, you may not squander that money, but all Hong Kong people are worried about it. He says that even though there's no money for universal retirement protection, $230 billion would have to be reserved for this white elephant. He says that a lot of projects would have to be built, and there will be a lot of poor people, but we don't care whether there will be a universal retirement scheme. Professor Chow Wing-sun has already said that we do need one. And John Zhang, when I was filibustering, he sneakily assigned $230 billion for the future fund. So that's why Professor Chow's proposal cannot be realized. If the universal retirement protection scheme is already in place, we don't care if he uses $230 billion for the future fund. But why don't you implement Professor Nelson Chow's plan first? Or it's like what Mr. C.Y. Leung says, if you give a vote to the poor people, then the policy will be lopsided. Then what are policies for? Aren't we not taking care of the poor? Aren't we not taking care of patients' cancers? Or cancer patients? This is really a waste of time. So all the members who want to speak in the first round have already spoken, and there are 2 speakers who would like to say something in the second round. First, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Second, Mr. Albert Chan. 4 minutes each, but I would like to remind you to please do not repeat the old points. Mr. Sun Chung Kai, I will not repeat my own points. There are two issues here. First, whether the chairman has the power to rearrange the order. And second, if so, how do you do that? In the past years, the government will just give us an agenda and we will just follow that. But that's just a habit. I've read the PWSC procedures. There's no rule stipulating that the order must be set by the government and it cannot be revised. However, our chairman does have the power to set the agenda. Of course, you have to abide by certain rules. Yes, that is definite. Yes, that's how I understand it too, Chairman. Now, Chairman, you have the power to make a decision. Of course, you should listen to the government's views as well.
Yeah. Today, I just submitted a paper which has shown my own view. In the future, if you want to amend the agenda, you should absorb the views of different parties to see if there is any consensus. This is only my view. I've already given my view, and I thank members for supporting it. Now, some members said that I'm from NT-West, therefore items from NT-West should go first. I look at my proposal. I said that these items are relatively less controversial. We want to make way for the administration. I don't do it deliberately, but not a single item not a single item is on Hong Kong Island. There is no hidden agenda that I'm fighting for the interests of my constituency. I just want to deal with the problems. Easier problems first. Mr. James Chen mentioned management books. You are the head of a CEO. You are working on, you're managing a firm, but we are not a boss of a firm in this council. We are dealing with social conflicts. We want to seek consensus. Can you adopt a management approach to deal with social conflicts? Ms. Albert Chan, I just say a few words. Can the administration provide the following? Say, concerning your planned papers, how many of such projects have invited tender, and when will the end of that? When will be the end of the validity period of those invitations? And what are the prices? I don't want to see the repetition of the problem in respect of the Buddhist hospital project. Many members, including Mr. Michael Tien, think that this council is just like a company. That's extremely dangerous and wrong. They are bosses. They think bosses can do whatever they like. The council or the parliament puts people first. As a boss, you put profit first. That's entirely different. They've confused the concepts, and therefore this council is a disaster, becomes a disaster. Some members have become lackeys. I try not to use that term. Some have a feudalistic mindset. They just accept arranged marriage. And if they are given the freedom to choose their own mate, they really cannot adjust to that. They really ask their parents again who is the best mate. They've lived they have a feudalistic mindset. That's their choice. But they cannot stop people to seek freedom. They live in a birdcage. Those birds that grew up in a birdcage feel that birds flying outside freely are abnormal. That's really dangerous. this council should reflect public opinion, and the priority of items should be adjusted according to public opinions. That's entirely reasonable. We just go through the natural process of talking to the administration. The loyalists talked to the government. They made under-the-table deals. I support your proposal. You give me a certain post. These are under-table. There are under-table deals. But what we want to do is put everything on the table. We don't do shady deals. So, Chairman, please ask the administration for information. What projects have invited tender, and look at the urgency of projects, assess the support for such projects. I think with some more information, it is a wise and reasonable decision can be made on reshuffling the items. Mr. Wai, can a table be given to the PWSC concerning the progress of the invitation for tender? Can that be done? Yes, certainly. Mr. Loy-Cock. Yes, I also want to seek information from Mr. Yang, the Undersecretary. Just now, Mr. Yang says that last year the PWSC dealt with 24 items, and the FC only dealt with 13 items, $3.6 billion. Does it include the Capital Reserve Fund? About 12-point-something billion dollars. Capital Works Reserve Fund. Does it include CWRF? I beg your pardon. Can you further explain that? 13 items, $3.6 billion. But the CWRF was discussed and we approved last year, 12-point-something billion dollars. Was it included? Now, at the FC, I mentioned a dozen or so projects approved by the FC. The 3-point-something billion dollars also funded by the CWRF. They are items under the CWRF. I understand that. Okay. My understanding is that the applications under the PWRF PWSC under the CWRF. Correct. As for item 2, I think those who want to speak have already spoken. I think Mr. Yang and Mr. Wai should understand that I, being the chairman and assisted by and supervised by members of the committee, I will have to talk to the administration on the arrangement of the agenda items. And if there is no outcome from the negotiation, then I will have to make a decision. And if I'm going to rearrange the items, I will have to set out the criteria. If I am to depart from the convention, then I should try to set the criteria. Say, for example, everybody has a different demand, and whether reshuffling the project will affect the price, the price tag. I have to consider a basket of factors. As a chairman, I have to make a decision having considered all the factors. Well, I hope that I don't have to make such a choice, but if I have to, then I will give a chance to both parties to make detailed representations. If there is no further dispute, I think I conclude the discussion on agenda item number 2. We have the electrical meeting very soon, and I don't want to spend the remaining 6 minutes on this artificial island in central waters. Meeting adjourned.